Yeah, thanks Drew for having us. Stoked to be here. We're on the GoPro design team, more specifically for software and services, which is probably the easiest way to think about it is the native applications for mobile and desktop. My name is Charlie. Unfortunately, I'm not a child actor. I wish I was. It would have been cool. I'm a design manager and a creative director at GoPro. Been there about 16 months or so, and I was previously at Focus Lab, a agency based out of Savannah.
I'm Ha. I have been at GoPro for 2 years. I am an initiative designer, and my role kind of basically bridges all the platforms. What I do is I basically do some R&D and work on product strategy and figure out what the right solution for us to build is. And we do a lot of prototyping and design experiment and then evolve that to a real product.
Hi everyone. My name is Iwasaki, and I'm a design researcher on the UX team in software and services. My background is in cognitive science and human-computer interaction and MBA from UCSD. Prior to GoPro, I was at Qualcomm in the Advanced Technologies group, and I started at GoPro about a year and a half ago.
Hello, can you hear me? My name is Dan. I'm a platform lead designer. In this case, platform I work on is Android, so I work a little closer to the actual production of the app, taking all the great work the design team does, and really getting it directly into the production application, working through the bugs and the tickets and all the details of making it actually happen in the app. So I work on the Android platform. We also have platform leads that work on iOS, our desktop apps, the web, and then we try to think of camera almost as another platform. So all of us working directly with our engineering teams to sort of implement designs and make sure they go out.
Awesome. You guys have way better descriptions than I did. So even more underqualified. So I think what we want to do is really have as much involvement from you guys. So I mean, you can think of it as like a 45-minute Q&A. We've got some questions as well to kind of kick us off. So I know asking questions can be scary. So I might just walk by and hand you a microphone, so be prepared. But I guess so, I think one of the unique things about working at GoPro, something I maybe didn't realize, was the difficulty of building software in a hardware company. Maybe you guys can kind of kick us off and talk a little bit about doing that.
So a lot of people, when I go to speak at other conferences, a lot of people don't really understand what is it that designers and the software team does. And we sort of evolved from a support role for the camera to a full product role. So when software for GoPro started, it was just a way to support the camera, a way to connect to the camera, a way to, remote control, the camera. But I think in the last year and a half, we've evolved to a product role. Like we have a lot of new software products now. They're not all out there yet. The exciting thing about working at GoPro is that we get to build a lot of new shit. But that's also the challenging part because we have to align with all the businesses. Like for example, we have to align with marketing, we have to align with hardware for a holistic experience. The primary problem that we as designers and software team have to solve is basically how do we get users to engage with the media they capture on the camera. And the biggest challenge for us is that, like right now, I have my session recording right now, and still record for a full hour right now, right? There's going to be moments in this session that's more exciting than now. And then, then I have to, if I want to pull out the best parts, how do I get that quickly? So if you can kind of extrapolate that to when you're surfing or when you're on vacation, you have hours and hours. How do you just pull that out? How does our software just know and tell you hey, Charlie, this is your best move. You just did a barrel, something like that. So that's our primary question. That's the problem that we try to solve across our platform.
Yeah, I would add on the sort of on the development production side of things too, one of the main challenges working with the connected sort of camera hardware is not only the connection itself, but also sort of the timelines they have. I mean, we're working in like 3-week agile sprints, so everything does is very fluid, very flexible, very changeable to some degree. They're working on 9-month, year-long camera design cycles, and so it takes a lot. It's very difficult, for us to kind of match those things up. Where a lot of times we do most of the catch-up work. We're trying to solve problems because their deadlines are so set and difficult to work around. So we do our best to keep in touch with them and to keep aware and aligned on the plans for new hardware, new features, new functionality. But ultimately, since we're the ones with the flexibility, we end up doing most of the planning around what they ultimately end up launching. And then small changes, in that environment. When you create, a piece of hardware, I mean, it's hard enough writing software and dealing with the challenges that any software platform, be it web or mobile apps, either Android or iOS or anything, already have. By creating a hardware device, we've created a whole world of our own problems that we can create for ourselves and have to work around. So we spend a lot of time working with camera in those regards as well. It doesn't work like it's supposed to. Why not? Well, it might not just be this, might not just be Android, it might not just be iOS, it may also be the camera itself, hardware, it might be the camera's firmware, it might be our own SDKs that allow us to communicate with it, stuff like that. So the timing and the actual overall complexity is just sort of expanded.
To that point, I think that most designers and most people I talk to, work in other software companies, what they understand is that everything we do, we pioneer. Like for example, when you build an app for the web, when you build an app for a mobile, you kind of already know how things work, right? You're just trying to solve the UX of the product problem of building the right thing, or what is the trigger point to get users engaged. But for us, it's more like we don't know. Connectivity, for example, like Dan is dealing with shifts all the time. And new cameras, every time we roll out a new camera, we have new sizes, new formats, and then that impacts how, when you connect to the camera, that impacts how you can scrub through it, and the quality, and a ton of other problems, right? So that's just one part of it. Like we pioneer, for example, we have an advanced technology team that's always doing things like image recognition stuff. So that's just one type of thing that we do. So one of the jobs we as designers do is we have to try to figure out what is the vision for the user and how this advanced technology can be used in a way that is surprising or delightful or magical. And that's another whole other thing altogether that we're moving forward. We're a young team. We're still trying to have more say in the strategy.
Hello. I think it's interesting, being at GoPro now, we kind of consider our software team almost like a startup within a bigger company, since it's only been around for a year and a half or so, and the first 6 months were a ton of growing pains. So it's really cool to see our team really start to get involved into the deeper thinking for GoPro, not just on the software side, but actually helping with some of the roadmaps across the company. If you guys have questions, just feel free to raise your hands. Otherwise, Han might talk the entire time. Yeah.
I don't know to the extent you guys can talk about it, but I mentioned yesterday, one of my favorite things in the world was the pairing of the Phantom drone and GoPro. It's like this beautiful pairing of technology. And it seems like both companies have kind of tried to do what the other, kind of move into the space of the other one. Like I said, I don't know how much you can talk about, but is there a perspective that you all have from the inside on the design team of how to approach a space like that, or what that's like from the inside?
Charlie, do you want to take that?
Like redact all my words.
Yeah, I don't know how much we can really say. I think one of the big initiatives that I worked on since coming to GoPro was really kind of breaking down the doors of each team and working closer with, for instance, in this case, like the hardware UX team. I was kind of fortunate enough to actually do some work on stuff that you're talking about. Is anybody recording this? Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's a tough question. I'd love to like fully answer your question, but yeah, when I'm unemployed because I got fired. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know if you guys could weigh in on any of that.
Well, we can say what's already in the press. The press says that we have the karma that's already out there. I can't really say anything more about that.
Yeah.
The fact that we do have the karma, which is quite common, I think.
Yeah.
I will say, I mean, I guess from sort of this history of like, you know, pairing with the Phantom and even pairing with other manufacturers and products and then supposed to building something of our own and then ultimately adding their own camera. And I think it just speaks to trying to provide the best experience. So you can do it all yourself. I have a panel too, I think, with GoPro, you know, connected to it. And it's a great product, but it's not easy to use end to end. So I think there's a lot of room for differentiation. You can control the whole experience. It's better all in one place. I don't know how many people here have drones, but it's a lot of YouTube videos. It's a lot of poking around on the internet with poorly written documentation, especially with HDI, trying to figure out how it works. So I think there's plenty of room for differentiation and an improved experience when you kind of take control of the entire thing. So I think it's natural for sort of, you know, one company and one do both. As a GoPro, you know, employee, I'm sad that you know, our cameras aren't going to work on the latest drones, and the new Phantom's really nice. So hopefully the comic comes out. And to be fair, I don't know that much about it. You know, it'll be a developing experience, and I think it's really, you know, what the company wants to provide. I think there's plenty of room to do that, you know, being a different room and everything.
Because you guys have like such different development cycles for the hardware and software, how do you test? Like, do you have to write simulators or get eval boards? Like, how do you start to develop the software product before you have the hardware?
Yeah, it's sort of a constant state of, we're constantly receiving more up-to-date, closer to launch specific bits and pieces of the entire system, but it's complicated and it's a lot of extra work, I think. But as the products approach release, we get closer and closer stuff. A lot of it's you know, kind of separated out into various parts. Like we have SDKs internally that manage our wireless connectivity, and the camera has, you know, a API on its side that manages, you know, its states. And so there's whole teams that work on those parts and pieces, and so they do a lot of communication and stuff before we see it sort of in the app level. But it's really just, you know, version 22 of the camera firmware came out today, and so that's all tested. And then, okay, now we've got, you know, closer to production ready, you know, cameras that we can plug into external boards and things like that. So there's a lot of different teams that work on a lot of the underlying technologies, sort of work as we get closer and closer. Most of that stuff ultimately doesn't bubble up into the UI where I am. Most of it's handled, you know, this browser and errors and Wi-Fi, stuff like that. But most of that gets ironed out when it affects the UI. Like that's not the type of stuff we want to expose. And so there's a lot of people that work a lot on that part of it, keeping it separate, keeping it out of making our life miserable.
And to add on to that, from the research standpoint, it's like we have to think about how we can get user feedback on products if some of those products aren't even close to being released or being close to, you know, the final whatever release that's going to be. And so, like, Ha and I have worked on some projects with the hardware team, and we kind of have to like look at it in bits and pieces and kind of say, okay, what part of this can we test? What's something that's more conceptual research at this stage, that as we get closer to building it and getting better hardware, that we can then test again in a different way.
Yeah, we try to look at a conceptual level where we say, here's this new mental model, and how does people even, you know, grasp it? How do people make sense of it? So then we do some preliminary research, and then we roadshow it across the organization, and then we try to drive a point of view around, you know, that new product, and then it's just back and forth, try and collaborate.
So I think this is probably a question for Jill, but I'm not really sure. How do you define who your, we kind of know who the market is for GoPro, or how it has like the early adopters and like as it's coming up, but go forward, how do you define who those personas are to like solve the problems for it?
So we definitely have a core market. In software and services, we've been focusing primarily on those more of the consumer side of it, so not as much of the sponsored athletes and the people who might have their own video producers already, but people who are actually using the GoPros and using our software. So that's kind of where we've been in the last year. Moving forward, I think we're trying to, as a company, widen that scope and audience and include people who aren't just using GoPros but also using other types of media. So it becomes more of a you want to expand on this?
I think yesterday I heard something like we are moving from a capturing company to a storytelling company. So that's a broad stroke.
I think too, to touch on that, I think who we were focusing on a year ago has drastically changed to who we are focusing on today and going forward. We just had a couple mobile acquisitions, and I think those were really kind of identified some new trends for us as far as like where we were going, kind of opened our eyes to like, oh, there's a whole other world. The one great thing about working at GoPro is that we have such a strong brand, but I also think that brand, at least what the consumer sees, is like, oh, why would I have a GoPro? I don't jump off a cliff on a daily basis. It's like, well, who does that? Like, I think I was talking to somebody the other day, it's like, the best thing about GoPros are like, I give them to my kids in the pool or like the soccer field, and they just go run around, and then like taking that stuff back and watching it later. A lot of you guys have kids here. Kids do some really fun shit. So like when you're sitting back and watching that, it's like, that's like really what it's for. It's like what Paul's talking about. It's like, it's the storytelling. It's not like to make you go jump off a cliff or start like become this like crazy like BMX rider or something. It's really about just telling your life story, you know.
And the cool thing that I find about, I wasn't convinced because when I was not the typical GoPro user. So the thing that when we talk to users, the thing that they keep saying is like, they see things that they didn't see before. They're now the actors of their lives. You know, they're not like just behind the camera all the time. So that's super cool.
Yeah, and to add on to that, something that I love about our research studies is we'll have our participants submit some of their GoPro videos beforehand so that we can really tailor and customize the experience for them before they come in for the research session. And it's been really interesting to see what kind of videos people are willing to submit and looking at which ones, they kind of the spectrum of videos from, snowboarding and surfing, and then to the ones with the family and the dogs and just like a holiday. And I feel like the ones that are most meaningful to people are the ones that have the people really tell their story. It's not necessarily the ones where they're doing crazy extreme sports.
Yeah, we had one where this guy recorded his wife's birth. So we did not see that, but it was.
I was absent that day. I didn't want to see that.
Any other questions?
So Charlie, to your point, when I think about GoPro, I think about people and athletes doing really cool stuff. You get a glimpse into their world, and you guys have built a brand and culture around those people and those use cases. So how does that affect your design process? And Jill, how does that affect your research process?
So how the brand affects the research process?
Yeah, like do you lean into that? Do you think about things like other use cases, or has that affected the culture of the design team?
So I think so. I mean, I think it's especially on the software team. Like I touched on earlier, almost being like a startup within, and the brand was so strong that we were getting tons of input from design, like from a design perspective of like who our customer is, who are we shooting for, not only like verbally, but then also with the imagery that we use. And I think over the last year, I think we've helped shape where the brand is now going by kind of enlightening the brand team and marketing team, like, hey, this is actually who our core user is. Like, I think there's a, for GoPro to continue, we have to have a good, I don't know, balance of both, because I think some of the stuff that those extreme athletes are doing with GoPros is like, it's amazing, right? And it helps on the marketing side. But for, when it gets to our side, really designing for our core consumer. Yeah, I think it's changed a lot.
Yeah, and to add on to that, thinking about like our pool of participants that we recruit, even though GoPro, you think of like all of the star athletes and the Olympic athletes and people who are very extremes, like I think our core market is not necessarily those people, but people who aspire to be like them. And so it's how can we empower our users to feel like those types of people? That's more how it affects our user base.
Yeah, I thought about this a lot because Jill and I have probably seen more of you in the video than probably anybody else in the company. And what we found is that the things that people are attached to create their story is different all the time. And it's based on what they're passionate about. So it could be their kids, it could be, their sport and whatever. And the thing that we pay attention to is that from a design standpoint, it doesn't change that much because we just have to provide a way for people to engage with those key things. And then we have to figure out what those key things are, right, at that moment. But but the thing that we do pay attention to is if you look at the analytics of how people capture, then you can kind of see how long the video is. And that depends on activities that they do. So a lot of surfers will tell you that they'll have it on for maybe a minute or 2 minutes because they're worried about their battery running out or something like that. Versus someone who's like in a race car and they just want to complete their entire intervals. And then the other one, the one that I thought was really interesting was we interviewed a guy, or did user research for a guy who did spearfishing, and he has this whole routine where he has his GoPro on his head, and then he basically don't turn it on until he's out there. He swims past the breaker, and he basically dives down when he finds something that's interesting. Then he turns it on, and he turns it on, never touches it again because he's scared of the fish. So there's these very routine things that people do, so we have to accommodate being able to consume a video that is 30 seconds all the way to a video that's 20 minutes. Those are the things that broad when we pay attention to.
I think also stepping back from the research itself, from the design itself, and thinking more about the research process, I think the way that we reap the benefits of having an awesome brand, in the sense that people are eager and willing to share their videos with us and to participate in research sessions with us, and I think that's really great for our design team because then we kind of have that interaction with the users, which I know a lot of companies struggle with. I mean, talking about your GoPro experience is more exciting than talking about, I don't know, B2B enterprise software, for example. So it's kind of like we really get to tap into people's excitement about what they use their GoPro for.
The overexcitement. It makes it difficult, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm sure some of you guys know, like, when you have such like passionate consumers, that it can make life even more scary. You're like, I really don't want to screw this up for people.
Hello. I'm also interested how you work with the hardware team and how close you sit together, if you have an R&D team, or is it like silos? Because it sounds like to be very silo-ish right now. And other question is, how do you care about, what do you do with technical debt? Because it's hardware. How do you keep supporting old hardware and make the users happy that bought cameras 3 years ago?
I would start by saying there's 2 types of hardware. There's an Android phone or a desktop computer or an iOS iPhone. hardware teams. The camera hardware teams is a different story. It's much more difficult because not only are they on a separate time scale, like I mentioned before, but they're also geographically in a different location. And what they do fundamentally takes a lot longer to kind of whittle down to this level. Well, there's large portions of the company that are dedicated to sort of like communicating back and forth around some of the hardware stuff. But yeah, primarily it's just, it really is up to the individual, sort of designers in the different functions to do our best to keep each other aligned, to keep in step with each other, aware of what everyone else is working on. And I mean, it's probably the biggest challenge, at least for me, that I face every day working with GoPro. It is very siloed, like I said, simply because it happens to be geographically separated as well as separated within the org chart of the company. Some of the initiatives, like the One Design initiative and other things that people are working on, are kind of designed to help with that, to provide sort of a higher level aligned view into certain things like certain types of interactions or how certain features play out across a suite of apps on different platforms and things like that. But it's just not easy. I mean, I think it's like working, if anyone's worked sort of somewhat remotely or with team members in other areas, it's not easy. So we do things like use our give chat rooms or our Slack rooms, or have regular sort of platform cross-platform check-ins and set aside meeting times to sort of go through like what are we working on now, and have you happened to do any work in that department, or have you heard anything about something changing in that, and as it pertains to this feature, and can I get that, and you can kind of try to stay aligned. But it's definitely not easy. It's certainly a challenge that we face every day. So yeah, I mean we're doing our best to remove those silos. Never really want the org chart to be visible outside of the company, but it's something we work at all the time.
Yeah, I agree with what Dan's saying. It is a challenge for us. We do have different research teams outside of software. So even though our research team is small within software, there's the camera research team. We have what was once known as the advanced mounts team. They're now the advanced concepts team, and they do research about just kind of the holistic experience of using a GoPro. And we are trying to figure out ways to work better together so that we get more of that end-to-end experience with the user, but it's definitely a challenge for us.
What Jill and I try to do is when we have a hint of an initiative coming, even if it's way out, we try to plan for it. And then I try to tell a story around the vision and basically provide some kernel of research to inform the point of view. And then we've gotten pretty good at campaigning across GoPro. Every single time we feel like we have something solid, then we would basically get on a plane and fly out to San Mateo and fly to San Francisco, and then we have to have this whole routine down. We also plan our presentation very carefully. We actually make sure we always say the same term about something so that when other people repeat our presentation, they're saying exactly the same thing that we want them to say, even though it sounds like we organically fired up at that moment. But we campaign for a specific point of view, and then we keep iterating on it, and then at that point, hopefully we've gotten some fans, and then they reach out and help us. So we do that. We have some traction with that now, and we show it to the hardware team. They go, "Oh my God, it's so awesome! We want to be on board, and we're doing this." And so we're just starting that, but I feel hopeful that we have some success.
Yeah. Another question. So going back to the storytelling, right? So I love that. I think that a lot of times, a lot of companies need to, surround themselves around the user, right? And you guys have a lot of sources, which everyone has, like GoPro. There's also a channel that you guys have, right? And so I know you guys are software, but like, is there thinking around, kind of going back to Jeremy's question, is like, you guys have these users, you have these sources. Like, what is the storytelling, right? Like now, what is actually the user the center of that? And if you are, like, what are the tools that essentially these users need in order for you to build that?
Want me to answer that? So if you look at the problems that people face when they use GoPro, first you gotta get the freaking thing off the camera, right? So that's one problem to solve. And how do you get freaking thing off the camera with a mobile phone? So right now we have clip and share, which is basically based on, I just did something cool. I want to just grab this one single moment out of this 2-minute video, just 15 seconds, and share on Instagram. So we already have that, right? We're just going to continue to build on that and make that really cool. We have other storytelling apps we acquired. We're growing, right now, basically my job is trying to figure out, like, what is that strategy across the platform. So I can only tell you, without getting fired, that we're trying to address all the touch points and make storytelling really easy for users and engage them with their key moments with minimal work. So right now, if you look at what's out there right now, in terms of working with really large videos, you have like iMovie and even YouTube or whatever. It's really hard, really hard to do. It takes you forever. Once you change music, you have to restart all over again, right? So we're aware of all those problems and we're trying to solve it. That's all I can say. It is a focus. It is major focus.
Well, also, since you have basically user cases, right, and the video or the channel can be a source. Because right now, like the reason that I know about that was I was on a flight and it was the one that moved through the channel. And GoPro was one of them, but it's just the surfers, it's the this, it's that, right? It's not like the kid, the soccer player, you know, that kind of thing.
So I'm going to bring up something that we refer to at GoPro as the Virtuous Cycle, where you see a cool GoPro video either on a plane or on YouTube, on your friend's Facebook or whatever. You see a video, it inspires you to, hey, I want to be able to do that too. I'm going to go get a GoPro. You get a GoPro, you record your cool activity, then you post it somewhere, and then somebody else sees it. And it's this what we call the virtuous cycle. And right now we're trying to find ways to make that virtuous cycle easier for people, so that we can get more videos out there and inspire more people to go out and use GoPro too.
How much time do you guys spend on the actual design and user interface experience of the hardware devices versus, I don't know, extra apps like you just came out with Quick? Like, are you guys working on other things besides that as a design team, or do you guys spend all your time on the actual devices?
So, I mean, I can answer some of that. So our team is more focused on the application side. And over the last, since, I don't know, maybe like 8 or 9 months, I'm a creative director for what we call One Design, which probably best to, I don't know, it's very similar to like material design for Google. And that's kind of allowed me to actually design across the company a little bit more. But our team is very much focused on the application side. So with, I'm sorry?
Application hardware?
Like, no, sure, the software side. Yeah, so the mobile apps and desktop apps and things like that.
Yeah, there's a separate team in San Mateo that works with camera hardware that does for example, the touch screen in the back of your board. Separate team that does that. We try to work with them. Like the way I like to think of it is they're another platform. The features and functions that we're all working on. But again, they are in a separate team, in a separate location, working in a separate timeline. So we do our best to work with them, and Charlotte could one decides that, you know, a nice opportunity to help work across the group in that broader way, that we're still kind of challenged to do daily basis.
Yeah, it's difficult to become really aligned with these teams because of the different, like Dan saying, release trains and things. Where we're designing for Smarty, which is the connect and control app on your phone, which is essentially what you see on the back of the GoPro screen. And up until maybe a year or so ago, we didn't do a very good job of talking, so the experiences felt very different. And so now we're constant communication, and I think there's a really good collaboration, during the process, where after it was usually just the camera team was like, here you go, now make it work. Sometimes that still happens, which is unfortunate, but I think we're slowly getting better at it. This is awesome, guys. Great questions.
this one's kind of more for you, Charlie. As somebody who was focused on agency and services work for so long and switching full-time to product, I know there was probably geographic limitations as well. But just curious what the transition's been like for you and what the big takeaways have been since then.
Yeah, so it's been awesome. I did agency life or freelance life my entire career, so like 10 years or so, and really wanted to go in-house on the product. I don't know if I fully jumped in. I chose GoPro because of what I was able to do, which was very similar to like working at an agency, which is touching a bunch of different platforms. I think the biggest thing is I'm just focused on brand now. So instead of like coming to like, I don't know, like Airbnb or something and working on one platform or one feature, I mean, I've got to touch, you know, all of our software products, worked on some things that we can't mention that are coming up next year, like on the camera side, the Karma side. So I kind of chose that for a reason, so it wasn't such a big, drastic change. And then moved back to California. It's always nice. So, finish your question.
I guess part of it too would be like just like the pacing. Agency life is very, very quick. I know you guys are working like hard and heavy, but you know, when you're pairing in hardware and software, it does kind of slow the cadence down.
Yeah, I think the shipping is always tough. You know, you work on stuff for so long, you know, that you're just ready for it to get out there. But on the flip side, on the agency life, everything's just such a first draft most of the time that you don't really get to like dive in and actually like think about the process or work with, you know, research and do that. So it's fun because it's like quick and every month you're on a new project or you're doing 3 different projects at one time. But I think I was at a point where I was ready for something different. So that hasn't been as hard. I mean, there's still challenges, right? You still like, you design something really cool and you're like, crap, I want to put this on Dribble. Anybody does Focus will have pretty much just have everything on Dribble. So that was difficult for sure. But I think I was kind of prepared for that and ready to make that move. So.
I was curious what you guys, you know, between software and hardware, what teams or what sides of the business would you say influence each other more? Like, you know, are your projects influenced by what's happening on the hardware side, or would you say more so vice versa?
I would say right now well, the last couple of years, it's been a camera company that is moving to a camera company with a software and services component. The company itself is primarily divided up in 3 groups, which is camera hardware, and then the media team, which is an amazing like group of video production guys that make all the awesome videos you see on YouTube. And then there's software and services, which has sort of a smaller support role. And so our group has been sort of growing our own presence, trying to sort of create new services and other things to be sort of more of a third part of sort of the overall business strategy, if you will. But it's that transition, I think, that over the last 2 years we've been working through. At the end of the day, still today, we make all our money selling things. That's pretty straightforward. So I don't know, in most companies, whoever makes the money, they're the one who's effectively driving seeds. So once we start making money with services and other related things, I think there'll be a little bit more quality there. But fundamentally, we are a hardware company, an accessories company, and so that's how we make money. So we have to support that. If the new camera comes out, our app has to support that, or it's not going to.
I do think too, though, like it used to be just hardware, right? Like that was what completely drove it, and it didn't really care what anybody else thought. And I think that's kind of where we're seeing the transition. Like hardware is always going to drive it like Dan saying. I mean, that's where we make money. Like software, everything we make right now is free. So unless there's a drastic change there, I don't think where we get that guidance is going to change. But it's been cool to see a hardware company really kind of open up and allow software to help define things and iterate. And I think it's only been getting better over the last year or so. So that's kind of exciting.
Does software play a big role though in like does the hardware team ever be like the software team says that we want to do this, but we need the hardware to do this in order to do that. So that actually drives that initiative on the hardware side. hardware team, but we got this new idea and we want to do this and we need software to support it. And so that's actually what's like having a greater influence on what you guys are doing in the software team.
We're moving more towards the first one, we're trying to then.
It is tough though because, like we mentioned before, being newer, like I don't think we've been able to get out in front as much as we want. I think we're still kind of playing catch up in a lot of ways. So I think what Hall's saying is like once we kind of finally catch up, then we can start doing that.
So you guys mentioned earlier that you mostly collaborate with two kind of teams, the hardware team and the marketing team. And you guys talked a lot about how you collaborate with hardware. I'm actually curious about how you guys collaborate with marketing, since like that seems to be a big part of like.
I guess that's for me. Since you guys were looking at me. Yeah, so I think, again, it's just kind of this, company maturing process where when we first kind of came on the campus, it was like, who are these new people? And just took direction from everybody. And kind of like the hardware team, where it probably made a little bit more sense, like fundamentally, just because we're making things that work together. That kind of organically happened. Where I think the marketing team was a little bit more work. We created this, thing, I guess, talking about one design that's really gotten everybody on the same page and collaborating, and really thinking about, kind of goes to what Jill was saying, like the virtuous cycle, but thinking about it in like our design process. It's like the camera team is making the cameras, we're building the apps to support those cameras, and the marketing team is also building like, the e-com side to sell the cameras, right? So going from a company that didn't really talk much about that to bringing it all together, I mean, it just makes sense, right? Like, how are you going to design a marketing page when you don't really understand the features of the application or the camera? It doesn't make sense, right? So I think it was something that everybody knew it had to happen, but nobody really stepped up and did. And over the last year, we've really tried to break down all the walls, make everything super transparent, get people more involved earlier on, which is always a great thing. Nobody wants to be in that, last person. It's like, oh, here, go do this. When we hate it on the software side, when somebody hands us a camera and says, just make it work, that's not very good for us either. So I think just recognizing that and trying to make friends in the company. It sounds kind of dumb, but it's the best way to do anything. I mean, just go and just be friends, go to lunch. Our boss, Vanessa Cho, is just like the most amazing diplomat. She makes friends with everybody. So learning from her last year and just going to the San Mateo campus and just meeting people, it's really been super helpful.
I also want to bring up the sports marketing team that we have is also located in our same office in Carlsbad, so we share that space. And something that's been great about that is we've been using them as kind of ways to test run some of our products, because we know that they're pretty much our core user right there, even if they don't have the tech background. So we'll have them kind of get a glimpse into what we're working on the software side, and then we get their feedback as well. Additionally, they also kind of go, oh, it would be great if some of our athletes could get a sneak peek at this. So we're working towards getting more exposure on the software side to some of the people that they reach out to. For example, Han and I will be going to the GoPro Mountain Games in a couple weeks to showcase one of our projects that we started about a year ago now. And so it's really exciting to be able to get that feedback at that scale.
One thing I would add to that that's interesting about what Charlie said is that we're trying to get more, everyone's trying to get more communication and collaboration across these groups. It's really critical, just meeting people in your organization, visiting the other locations, all that stuff's important. But I find it interesting that, and I've seen it elsewhere too, is that design is sort of the one, the design group, as spread out as it is the one that's stepping up and sort of owning that process and trying to pull those people together. I'm not exactly sure if it's just sort of the nature of design, sort of like take the ideas and pull them into something that people can look at and react to and start giving feedback on. But it's definitely the design team is sort of owning that. We have product managers that talk to each other all the time. We have engineering teams that have to talk to each other, but we're the ones generally that are sort of enabling that collaboration and communication. So it's super important and we have to continue to do it. It's not easy for everyone. It's not kind of like my main way of operating. It's sort of that pulling everyone together and stuff like that. But we're in a great place to do it. And at GoPro, I think we're just leading that change right now.
I think it's because designers are way more social. Are there product manager conferences? Do they have those?
Kind of piggyback on the collaboration part. I work on a software team where we have going through the same issues you guys had, arguably a lot smaller company. But as designers, we were working in silos and we're trying to, again, take the initiative, break down those walls and include engineering and platform and all that into the same conversation. The other piece for us that's missing as well is design system. So I was wondering if you guys could talk about how, with such a strong brand, if you guys have a system in place to help make sure that the software you're designing also looks like your brand, also looks like the marketing, also looks like, I mean, just down to the buttons in your iOS apps or the buttons in your web app, etc. Like, if you could just speak to how you guys kind of solve that problem.
Yeah, sure. So through One Design,
that was basically the initiative because air some dirty laundry. For example, we had an icon set that had 3 different trash cans in it, and I think some of the teams were literally using all 3 of them in the same like application, or so it was a mess. I mean, honestly, it was just a mess. So through One Design, we really, I think this is where we saw collaboration really grab hold at GoPro. A couple designers on our team, a few on the marketing side, and then some on the camera side got together, and we just designed the entire ecosystem. And it didn't matter what your actual job title was, you just designed what you thought it should be. And that's how we started. Which is interesting because we had a really strong brand. So the easy thing would have been just to say, like, all right, let's just make it all look like the brand. But I think we all felt like maybe that was a little stagnant and we wanted to kind of, maybe it didn't translate super well. So that's where we started. And over the last year, we've started to get these design systems and style guides and consistencies. And I think from a design perspective, we've come a long way. Now getting that implemented on the engineering side is a whole other thing to do with like tech debt. And Dan could probably talk to this. We actually have 2 like UI engineers for our mobile teams now, just to get us back up to speed with like where the style guide needs to be. On some of the newer projects, it's obviously easier because we've built it from the ground up. But going back and kind of going through this, it's been about a year, but I think we've really made some good strides. I think over the next year and a half, you'll really start to see the brand really come together as one.
the investment from like the stakeholders is actually spending time on that as opposed to saying you're a new. It's hard to convince someone that you need that as well to make it more powerful to be more efficient.
So I think it's the easy answer to that. We didn't do it in lieu of shipping and doing other things. We did it together. And we kind of just said, like, look, we need this. We're going to spend extra time away from like our normal day today. And then we presented a really compelling, argument to Nick, and he loved it. He was totally on board. Which, I mean, who would? I mean, the stuff that we were saying was pretty obvious, right? Like, you shouldn't have 3 trash cans. That's stupid. I mean, like, there were just some things in there that were so glaring that you're like, this blue's different than that blue, but this is supposed to be our brand. It's like, I mean, there were some really kind of scary things. So I think that helped. And Nick's very design focused as well. So he was definitely on board.
with VR and AR starting to emerge, there seems to be a lot of potential for GoPro. Can you tell us a bit about that without getting fired?
We are thinking about that, but I can't talk about it.
I have a question.
Okay. Thinking about it every day.
One question I have that's interesting about the software and like the hardware relationship is that consumers are mostly they're interacting with the hardware product at kind of a set it, and then they're interacting with the software at another level. And how do you take the feedback for the software and then kind of distill that through your core audience to make sure that you're making the right adjustments to reach the core audience in that larger group without applying to like fringe cases? And is there a way that you guys have found a good use case to apply that feedback to get effective results and measure it?
Sorry, could you repeat the last part?
Oh, just like in how you measure it, like how you figure out, like, because you're making, I'm assuming you're making adjustments to software based on feedback from the users, but usually you get inundated with a bunch of feedback, or if you move something, people are like, wow, where'd that shit go, or whatever, but like it's that idea of moving that around, so how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, on the mobile side, we can talk a little bit about that. We're fairly, I mean, I have sort of like my own thoughts around sort of how you go about doing that. And some of that we've been bringing into the process. I'm a big proponent of sort of like the lean UX method, where you want to test things, or you just change it and see what people say, and fake it, and see if anyone's interested in it, that kind of thing. But we're generally pretty brutal about just moving stuff around if we want. We don't worry about it too much unless we hear like massive outcry. We don't try to remove features just for whatever reason, but we do get rid of stuff if we don't see anybody using it. The app is, we have our standard sort of app analytics that we use to just sort of drive a lot of the decisions around that. I think we're getting better and better coverage every day. And we do sort of standard KPI tracking with like regular reporting across all the platforms, so we can see, things like clip and share, for example, is a primary example. Those sort of our core KPIs. You need people to share media because it feeds that cycle. If they're sharing, people are seeing these amazing shots and then being inspired to go out and get GoPro or be part of that. And so we've done stuff around clip and share, and then we get a baseline, and then we do more stuff around educating about it or explaining it or showing people how to use it, and then we follow and track those metrics. So we're doing all that kind of sort of standard usability stuff. I think right now we have so much stuff on our plates that I don't think from a design perspective, from engineering, we're necessarily spending as much time as I would like to, like really honing in on some of these core things, because we have so many things going on. But it's it's a process that's still happening, albeit maybe slower than I would like. And ideally, we'll get to a point where we'll be able to accelerate that, more focus on more use cases, and then be launching faster improvements, tests, things like that. That's too broad of an answer. But
So I'm going to kind of piggyback off of what Dan is saying. In effort to make that process faster, we actually are looking for a usability researcher right now. So if you are interested, please come find me afterwards, or apply at CKO. That's his Twitter handle is Nick Hurston. He's our recruiter.
And we're hiring for all different kinds of positions.
No recruiting from the panel.
Just to answer, kind of like feedback on what Dan was talking about on the desktop side, we just released a desktop application in March. And a lot of the feedback we got, we kind of knew, because we still have like UX and tech debt we're paying. And right now we're kind of balancing it with new business goals of how we want to proceed forward. So that's where we are. It's still brand new, and we're still trying to figure out like roadmapping it forward.
If veer into should do territory as opposed to actually doing territory, I think the best thing you can do is really have a clear strategy about sort of the problem you're trying to solve, either very small or very large in your application, and then have their hypothesis, trackable metric about whether or not you're hitting it. And then it's just, brainstorming, coming up with the quickest, fastest thing you can do to increase that number and launch it and see what happens and learn something, and then, pivot from there. And so that's the type of thing we're trying, at least I'm trying to bring more sort of platform level of development. We could improve the use of clip and share if we could sit in the room and come with 100 ideas in an hour. You can just pick one, easy one, something you can do by the end of the week, you might get it done. And so, you know, ideally, that would be happening more often. Right now, Toss says there's a lot of other business goals, tech debt that are, you know, we're sort of working through as well. But yeah, we're speeding up, we're getting that bad.
One of the things that I was trying to push to prevent feature creep is that because I had the luxury of conducting conceptual research beforehand, it was very clear to us what the product principles should be. So good products are focused because they follow a very narrow set of principles. So what every single time when somebody brings a feature up, I would say, this is the context, these are the principles, does it meet these principles? And that's been very successful. And over time, the team just repeats it, and then they kind of like self, police themselves, right? It's getting better, but if you have a really compelling story to tell about strategy ahead of time, then that work is really easy, or easier.
Yeah. So in the past couple of years, there's a big push in the industry for designers to have bigger voice within companies to be at the head of the table to help kind of set some of the product direction and not be so much as a team that kind of gets things handed to them and they take it from there. Just specifically with GoPro, you guys have walked into a situation where hardware has bring a lot of the success of the company in the previous years, and you talked about how in the past couple of years you've broken down those walls to, on the software side, to kind of work closer with the hardware side to start to set some of those things and not just kind of take orders. So I'd be curious, you guys have talked about how you work to break down those walls and things that have worked, but Charlie, for you walking into that as a fresh design manager, a team that was really established on the hardware side, what have you learned? What have the bumps in the road been for kind of getting that buy-in and changing the conversation within the company to be, not so much on hardware, but then also more on software and products? And then to the rest of the team, any bumps in the road that you've had, things do you continue to practice, to continue to build the momentum that you've had in the past couple of years to keep pushing for more of a voice within the company?
Yeah, I think from my standpoint, I think it kind of goes back to like the whole making friends. I think the worst thing you could do is anybody coming to a new company, or if you're in a new company, is just start like yelling and screaming and saying like, you guys are doing it wrong, you should do it this way. So the more people that you can befriend and get on your side and talk to and really kind of collaborate with, I think you start to get that buy-in from that audience, and then you're actually allowed to make some impact. It's kind of like what I did with the one design. It was like, just one, everybody thinks their ideas are great, so you should like see what they actually are and go find out. If people are telling you you're stupid, you should probably stop. Not all cases, that's probably bad. Weird, reverse that. But yeah, I think it's just going through and just kind of doing your due diligence and get to know people, bounce your ideas back and forth, and if they're good ideas and people are on board, you get that buy-in, you get that backing. You can really kind of make the impact or the difference.
I want to talk a little bit about the initiative Joe and I ran last year. It was sort of a guerrilla effort at the beginning, but we implemented a conceptual research process that I hadn't really done anywhere else. So a lot of times what designers will do is they will basically come up with one solution, and then they test it. And I always say that when you test one solution, it's like, I gave the user a hammer and tell them to build a house, and yeah, 80% of them built the house with the hammer, right? So some of the problems that we solve, we're trying to be innovative about it, and we don't know what trade-offs users are willing to make. So the thing that's really helped us is we got a hackler and we built a functional prototype, and we tested team diverging behavior. So we gave, it's not the solution, but it's like this one solution is completely opposite of this one, and just to see like what trade-off they're willing to make. And then when you do that, the user is comparing the two, so then you can figure out what their real motivation is, and you can really fine-tune the context and their goals. And because we had a functioning prototype that we refined over time, we were able to give that to executives who used it. And basically, the decision to build that was from the top down. So then we didn't have to like go all the way, from sell it from each tier up. So when you have a functional prototype and you have videos of people using it and loving it and telling you, how they feel at specific moments, that's really powerful. So it's something that we're trying to grow, that process for everything else.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
It's something we talked about earlier. It's like, it's not the idea. It's like go out and execute, and then get it in the hands of the people, and then it's harder to ignore it, right? I mean, when you actually go and do all the work, and prove all your assumptions and do all that legwork, it's a much more compelling story for sure. We have to go, so sorry if we didn't get your questions. We'll be around the rest of the conference, so if you want to come up and chat, we'd love to hear from you. We are also hiring, so if you're interested in that, let us know.